Hamas represents the deepest Palestinian ethos. What it means to be a Palestinian is first and foremost to believe that anywhere between the river and the sea, there should not be a Jewish state. That is the deepest marker of the Palestinian identity. It is tragically a nationalism that was forged as a negative one that was forged around the idea of revenge, of destruction of the Jewish state, of return. When President Biden came here, and like all Israelis, we were fearful, like we felt saved, we were thankful. But I remember that as he left, he said, and Hamas doesn't represent the Palestinians. And I immediately thought, oh, this is a sentiment that we will be paying for. And it's actually important to immediately make it clear that Hamas represents the deepest Palestinian desire for there not to be a Jewish state. They are the most brutal and successful executors of that Palestinian vision. And in the book, I invented a word called Westplaining, which, like mansplaining, is the same attitude. It's when Western journalists and diplomats explain away what Palestinians have very clearly said. So after October 7th, Palestinians are rooting for Hamas, and they're proud, and they say it's wonderful. And the West goes, Hamas doesn't represent the Palestinians. And the Palestinians go, but they do, they actually do. And Westerners go, no, they don't. And again, one of the things I'm most proud of in the work that I've done over the years and in this book is that I continue to give Palestinians the respect of taking them at their word. Now, you talked about maybe people in Gaza can't speak up. But where is anybody else anywhere? In Columbia, at Harvard, in London, in Brussels. I've been giving this talk for years. And a bit like you said about Westerners, a lot of people said, but don't the people of Gaza want a different future for their children? And they think they just want like a good, go to college and all that. And I always tell them, this is the better future that they want for their children, the future from the river to the sea. In the name of that future, they're willing to fight, they're willing to sacrifice, they're willing to keep fighting and not build a prosperous Gaza. In the name of this ideal, they're transforming Gaza into a launch pad to liberate Palestine. And then I give talks to many student groups, and I feel them as I speak. They begin to rebel, and they say, you're generalizing. You know, just like there's a lot of views in Israel, there's a lot of views among Palestinians. And I always tell them, look, I've made it so easy to take me down. My argument is so vulnerable to a takedown precisely because I insist on this broad argument. And I tell them, look, you think I'm wrong? Go, bring me a Palestinian who publicly and in their own voice, because of Westplaining, I refuse to have any Westerner or Israeli who tells me I know such Palestinians. I'm like, no. The only thing that matters is what they say openly, publicly, in their own voice, and it has to be clear. When I worked with Shimon Peres, during the 90s, there was this reigning idea that to make peace, we need constructive ambiguity. Let's just fudge the issues, sign an agreement, trust will build. It was the commanding idea. I've become a proponent of constructive specificity. Let's be very, very clear. So to know that the path to peace is open, what I need to hear from a Palestinian is this. The Jewish people as a people have the equal right to self-determination in this land, which is also their homeland. I know that this means that we can build a state of Palestine next to the Jewish state of Israel and not instead of it. I understand that this means that living in Gaza and the West Bank, I am not a refugee from Palestine. This means I do not possess a right of return into the sovereign state of Israel. I only want to build a prosperous state of Palestine in Gaza and the West Bank and nowhere else. And I always tell them, go, bring me. And no one ever comes back. And just to be clear, it's not that I'm sitting and saying, oh, look at me, you know, no one ever comes back. As I said, I'm a long-term peace activist. I'm looking for these voices. I follow what you publish. They say a lot of things. They're angry at Hamas. They refuse to participate in what Hamas is doing. I'm not yet hearing that.
What would you say to the notion? I mean, we spoke with Natan Sharansky the other night, right? And I was thinking about the Soviet context. What would it mean to stand up in the Soviet Union and say, I want to move to Israel? Well, for him, it meant 9 years in the Gulag. What would it mean for a Palestinian to stand up and say, I'm against Hamas? It would mean certain death, just to push back a little bit.
If you're doing it in Gaza, again, nothing. But again, there are Palestinians in the West Bank, in Jordan, in Syria, and Lebanon, all over Europe, all over the United States, and they are all saying the same things. When I say, bring me a Palestinian who will say that, I say anywhere. It could be someone living in Canada. So just bring me someone who will say that clearly and openly. And the notion, again, that Palestinian society is a place where you cannot criticize, this is why I emphasized that when Arafat went to Camp David, he was heavily criticized in Palestinian society for daring to go negotiate. He was not criticized for leaving the room. So there's tremendous possibility. And also, we need to not Westplaining. People say, oh, there's polls from October 6th showing that Hamas was not popular in Gaza. I'm like, true. People were not happy with the management, with religious issues, but they were perfectly happy with the slaughter of Jews. So we need to not project our understanding of when Palestinians say that they oppose Hamas, we need to not project into that what we think it means. Unless they clearly say that they oppose the century-long Palestinian war against Jewish self-determination, nothing else is really of value.